Will I lose my license after a DUI arrest in Maryland? That is probably the most common question I get asked during a free consultation. In fact, I ask everyone at our first meeting, what are your biggest fears? And I'd say the number one fear is losing their driver's license. So ultimately, the answer to that question depends on whether or not you took the breathalyzer test and what the results were. You need to remember, when you're arrested for a DUI, they're going to confiscate your driver's license, and they're going to give you a temporary 45-day license. It's good for 45 days. You can drive anywhere in Maryland and around the United States unencumbered. But on the 46th day after your arrest, if you do nothing, your driver's license is going to be suspended. So here's what you need to know. If you take the breathalyzer test and you blow a .08 to a .14, then what you're facing is a 180-day suspension, modification, or interlock, meaning your license could be suspended, or you could potentially get that suspension modified, or you may have to put the interlock on your car. And what I would suggest to you, and what I tell all of my clients who blow a .08 to a .14, is to request an MVA hearing. Now remember, you have a limited amount of time to request that MVA hearing, so it's very important that you do that right away. And the way you do that is by sending in the MVA hearing request form along with $150 to the MVA. What will then happen is they're going to send you an extension letter in the mail extending your privilege to drive up until your MVA hearing. I typically see MVA hearings scheduled 3 to 4 months after your arrest. It really depends on how busy they are and when they can fit you into the schedule. And at the MVA hearing, what you're basically going to ask for is a modification, meaning you want to be able to drive to and from work, to and from school, to and from medical appointments, things like that. And in my experience, for a first-time DUI offender, they typically walk out of there with the modification if they've blown a .08 to a .14. However, remember, with the new laws, you could end up with the interlock for that period of time, or the judge could decide to just suspend your license for the 180 days. But in that situation, I always recommend to request the MVA hearing. Now, if you blow a .15 or above, then you're also facing a 180-day suspension, or you can put the interlock on your car for 1 year. Now, if you want to just go ahead and put the interlock on your car, you can do that, and you don't have to request an MVA hearing. You take the paperwork to the interlock provider, they install it, you go to the MVA, and they give you a driver's license, and now you're in the interlock program for 1 year. In situations where people blow over a .15, I don't always recommend that they request an MVA hearing. It depends on the facts of the case, whether or not I think we might have a chance at winning it. And what I usually tell people is save the $150 and perhaps think about just putting the interlock on your car. My recommendation is always to take the suspension if you can handle it. But a lot of people can't handle a 180-day suspension, so they end up having to put the interlock on your car. The last scenario where you could lose your driver's license is if you refuse the breathalyzer test. If you refuse the breathalyzer test, you're looking at a 270-day suspension, or you can also enter the interlock program for 1 year. In any scenario, if you request an MVA hearing because you've refused or you blew over a .15, you're looking at that suspension or the potential of the interlock. So to answer the question, will I lose my license after a DUI arrest? You're not going to lose your license, but it may be suspended, modified, or you might have to enter the interlock program. We can typically save your license, meaning we can keep you on the road, we can keep you driving, but you got to understand it's either going to be modified or you're probably going to end up in the interlock program. So those are what you really need to consider when you're facing a DUI arrest and you're worried about what is going to happen to your driver's license. You're probably not going to lose it, but it's going to be modified, or some sort of exception is going to be on it, which is going to restrict how you're able to drive in Maryland. If you've been arrested for a DUI in Maryland, then contact my office so we can answer the question, will I lose my license after your DUI arrest?